Myself and Robert Watson, we are live here on all the platforms as we're moving forward. It is Wednesday. Robert, what is going on?
Is a beautiful day, and I have a great quote for us today, right?
All right, what do we
Life
got?
shrinks, life shrinks or expands in proportion to our courage.
Very true.
Yep.
I've been thinking about that. It's funny. I was just trying to think about what's going on, Nikki, how there's a lot of things that, that rolls into, because I've been talking about that too on TikTok. It's like you have the choice, right? You have the opportunity and you have to be willing, the courage, you have to be willing to do that, because if you do not, then it's never going to happen for you, right? You gotta get out there. You gotta jump in the water.
There we go. Yeah, you really do. And I think sometimes we don't want to hurt some people's feelings or whatever our excuses are, but we don't take the action we know we need to do, right? And our life does shrink by comparison because we're not being authentic. It's interesting because they have this study on vibration, right? And our best vibration as human beings are authenticity. It's not love, actually, it's authenticity.
Yep.
So it's really interesting because I have to think to myself, and I ask myself the $100 million question all the time, which is, if I had $100 million, what would I be doing? Because that should be the same. Whether I don't have $100 million or I do, I should be living the same life with the same goals, the same aspirations.
Yep.
Granted, money should not be the deciding factor on whether or not I do something one way or the other. I should strive for it even though I don't have the money, quote unquote, because again, the money will show up.
Yep. It's crazy. Michelle, thanks for hopping in on YouTube. We get comments all over the place. So if you guys want to comment wherever you do, we're trying to catch them as we go on, but we appreciate you being on whatever platform you are. Money's one of those things that, like, as you're talking about that, I just think about, like, monetarily, like, if I had more money, what would I do? I would have more things. That's what I would do. I mean, I'd go out and I'd buy more things, and that's really what it is. It doesn't mean that I would do anything different. I would still like to keep pushing forward no matter what. Like, what are you going to do? Go sit on an island and just hang out all day and just be bored? That it gets old after a while. As a teacher, when I was a teacher, I think we've had this conversation before, but I'm sitting here talking about, I was bored. 3 months out of the year, I'm sitting at home and I'm like, what am I going to do? And you can go get a part-time job, but it's not going to pay you enough to, sustain or do any more. And I mean, it got to the point where I didn't even want to be home in the summer. I mean, it was just crazy. I wish I could have taught year round if I was teaching, or found another way to make more money, or do something that would keep me from being bored.
Yeah, there's a natural segue you have to have as scholars or academics. We have a natural segue, and the natural segue is always writing. So in other words, if we're not teaching, we're writing. So There is that way of, hey, we've got this book project. When you mentioned things that stuck on me, we must change our focus from having more to being more.
Yeah.
And you said it. You said it. I'd go get more stuff. But really what you were saying to me now was, I want to be more.
Yep. Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. Someone just said, well, what's wrong with living off the land, living off the grid, no internet? And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with doing whatever you want to do, but just finding something to do to keep you complacent. I think about retiring, right? Like, my father is, 66 or something like that. And he's getting close to the retirement age, but he's not going to. And my grandfather, he worked until he's, in his 80s. You just get to the point where you just don't want to be complacent, because if you are, you just die, I mean, not die, but like as you stop challenging yourself, as you stop trying to do things, you just kind of fade off into the sunset.
Yeah, I think challenge yourself is the operative word, because again, we all tend to drift into a comfort zone, right, where there's really no growth, and we call it progress, but the reality is we're capable of so much more, and we're stifled by our comfort zone. We're stifled by our lack of courage.
Mm-hmm.
I am, and I'm the nutty person that probably tries to kill himself on a regular basis. But I mean, I don't mean that in a suicide way. I mean that in the activities that I do, are really pushing the envelope. But again, that's how I feel alive.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny listening to. I got some content violations on here, and it's really dumb. But
Russ?
no, not for us, but for
Oh,
the creator program, because you can't post unoriginal content. And I'm sitting there looking at like David Goggins. I went down the David Goggins hole. I read both his books or listened to both his books and listened to a lot of stuff that he says. And he's like so diehard about everything, but what he's talking about. And so I'm posting it to my story, and apparently that's a bad thing. You can't post anything that's not original to your story either. So I get these content violations. And if I get one more, I'm kicked out of the creator program. So I won't be able to make, 2 cents a month on my posts. But it's just kind of funny because he's talking about this Badwater race. It's like 135 miles or something that he did. And he got into like mile 80 and he thought he was going to die. And he, just because of how bad it was, like how sore he was, how tired he was, how much work he had to do to get into it. And then he got to the end and his wife was there. He's like, we got to get you to the hospital. And he's like, nope. He goes, I just want to sit here in this pain because I cannot believe that my body was capable of doing what I have done. And I think we get stopped with a lot of things that we do because we don't think that we are capable. We are capable of much more than we give ourselves credit for. It's just crazy how hard you can actually push yourself, but you have to have the courage to do that.
well, there's this idea, and you hit on it earlier, that your body supplies what you demand of it. Okay, pure and simple. So I have a friend. She's suffering right now with memory issues and stuff like that. No contact, no disease. What it is I told her and I tried to explain to her. She's in her late 30s. If you do not use it, you lose it.
Mhm.
And it's very different from my perspective because I know that personally. Like if I don't use a muscle group, dude, you're toast.
Yeah.
And especially at my age, you really feel the impact. And I just said, so what we're doing is we're doing Sudoku together. We're doing math problems and things that demand a different faculty. And I said, I'm all for it. But I said, you don't realize how dependent you become on calculators, for example. I can do math in my head, but there's
Right.
a whole lot of people, another generation that can't, right?
Right.
Because they don't use that. And that's what we're asking. And that's what Goggins was basically saying in a nutshell is, listen, we don't know what we're capable of until the demand is there.
Yep. Yeah, and that's why he continues to push himself. I mean, that's if you guys haven't read any books in a long time, I'm telling you, someone told me reading it is tough. I listen to them audible because it's just hard to like understand. But when you hear this guy talking about what he's doing and how he's doing it, like you truly believe it. Like he's done some crazy stuff. He in the first book he did the Badwater, and the second book he did this other one that was over like 200 miles, and he went off the wrong way and didn't finish, and then he turned around, like he basically just dies every time he finishes. Like he has this detoxification, I swear it's what it seems like, but he goes and sits in the bathtub, he defecates all over himself. Like I mean, he just can't control his body because he's pushed his body so hard to do these things, and it's crazy. But he got to this in the second book. He did this race one time. He did it twice, but the first time he did it, he ended up going and went through that process. He didn't finish, and then he went back out like 2 hours later, got back on the course and finished the race. It didn't qualify, it didn't count because he didn't finish it all in one shot. But they're like, I cannot believe you did this. It's like that's the type of courage you have to be able to push yourself to continue to go. And your body is capable of so much more than you think it is. And I mean, I have the issues. I have the same issues myself. It's like I'm trying to decide, well, I can't do this and I can't do that. And you tell yourself you can't do it, but have you really tried? Have you really pushed yourself to that limit that you can't, you cannot go anymore?
Yeah, and no, I haven't in a long time. And I just look at it back to the authenticity issue is one of the things they do in buds for seals, which he is a seal,
Yeah.
was they basically gut check your want to.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they're doing.
Yeah.
They're not pushing you. They're not harassing you. They're asking a question of you fundamentally is, do you want to do this?
Right.
Why? Because here's what they don't want you to do. They don't want you to get in combat. They don't want you to get shot up and quit on them.
Yep.
They want to know there's a teammate that they can trust to the bitter end. And that's a want to issue. And I think that's the thing we should be. Hey, we're getting ready to do a new year and we're going to put out this buffet of things that we'd like to change. But really, we need to go back to the want to. What do
Right.
I really want to change? Who
Hmm.
do I really want to be? And when I say want to, means you're willing to go the hard path. You're willing to suffer through whatever
Yep.
because that want to is great enough. Because again, if we're just sitting on the buffet line, you know what it's like to walk through the buffet line with your plate. You
Yep.
can have everything you want, but that doesn't that's not going to be your want to, right?
Right.
And we're at that point in our lives where, especially when you're in my case, where you're looking at there's more life behind you than there's in front of you, right? It's
Yep.
very simple. What do I want to do with the next 20 years? Why? Maybe my last.
Yep.
What do I want to do with it? What is my want to like?
Yeah.
Boy, you got to get that stuff fixed.
Definitely. Yep. You have to do that. You just have to be willing to continue to just keep going. And if you can't, then I mean, you're going to die in the chair. Michelle says the last month I removed and replaced the carpet on my lower level of the house and replaced the bathroom faucet by myself. There is, and that's a great indicator that, you know, you can do whatever it is. Like we all have, if we don't know how to do something, we have a supercomputer in our hand anyway that we can figure out. You
Oh my
can
gosh,
Google it,
yes.
you can YouTube it, you can watch a video. I mean, I don't know how many times I've done that, you know, in the last, 10 years. It's like, hey, I need to fix my truck, right? There's the knock sensors were out in my 2000 Chevy pickup. And it was like, how do I do that? And you just go on YouTube and watch the video and see how to do it and go out there and do it. You don't have to pay someone to do it. I thought about, I hung a TV this weekend in my house and I'm like, I looked at it and I'm like, oh, this is kind of a daunting thing. I know I can do it. I'm afraid that I'm going to screw something up. And lo and behold, I called someone, they couldn't come when I wanted to. And I just did it. And it was just fine. It was just fine. And we just have to get past that fear that we're going to screw something up or we're not going to be able to make it work or, whatever. It's what's the worst thing that can happen?
Yeah. So my friend had this leak in her outside faucet. Well, when they came in to fix it, they had to knock a hole in the wall of her child's bedroom.
Hmm.
So they leave because they're plumbers. And there's a hole in the wall, right?
Yep.
And so she's looking at it going, well, who do I call? What do I do? And she said, you know what? Enough of this. She got on YouTube exactly like you said.
Yep.
She's a pretty good artist, meaning she's real fine for details. She patched that hole in the wall, uh, took perfect care of it, painted it. And I'll tell you what, you can't tell that there was a hole in the wall.
Yeah.
Now, granted, it was her first time. It was awkward. There was mistakes made. But here's the point. That's back to the same thing. Stretch yourself. I mean, she did an absolutely phenomenal job. You would hire her to do your drywall.
Yeah.
That's how good she did. Okay. I'm sure that's the same situation with replacing the carpet and the faucet. Listen, we're so capable. And like you said, we have a supercomputer, YouTube videos in our hand.
Yep.
It's different in my day when you literally had to go get a book,
Right.
okay, and go through the stretches, right? But remember what it was also different because my dad, for example, taught me how to change brakes, how
Yep.
to do timing, how to do all these things. You went out, you popped the hood on the car, you got underneath there and you did the job. How did you learn? Your dad taught you, your mom taught you. How I learned to cook? My mom taught me.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's it's the same thing. It's kind of funny because I sit there and cooking is one of those things. Like I love to barbecue, and there's things that we sit there and you're like, oh man, the brisket's really tough to cook, and it's like, no, it's not. It takes a long time. There's a process to it. It doesn't always come out the same every single time. But if you don't even try, how are you going to know if you can do it?
Yeah, you do a pretty good job. I've seen a lot of the pictures. That stuff looks really good at the end. But I mean, and that's really it. It's really just it's trial and error. And again, I can't emphasize this enough because again, a friend's having these struggles, right?
Yep.
With her memory and all that kind of stuff. And I said, listen, you've got to go start working the problem.
Hmm.
Stop feeling like you're a victim and start working the problem.
Yeah.
You know what needs to be done. Work against your struggle. Okay, just take care of business. One of the interesting things is these two PhDs are twins, and they both have degrees in psychology. One is off in the gaming side, the other one's in the stress. And she said, you know what the upside of stress is? She said, if you use it properly, it's a bunch of energy, right? She said, if you channel it into doing something positive with it, it's incredibly good, like an athlete, right?
Yep.
When we get ready to go out on the game day, we're all jacked up with stress. Well, what do? You got to go get that first hit,
Right.
right? I mean, swear to God, my first play, I don't care what they thought the first play was. I knew what it was, option right or option left. Why? Because I needed to get hit.
Yeah.
Because
Get you
once I
ready.
got hit, I was fine.
Right.
It's in the meantime, it was like, I got to get rid of these jitters. Okay. And that's the thing is you got to be able to take these situations and these challenges. You got to channel your energy, man, to work the problem.
Right. Yeah, and it's amazing how this society that we've come to, because we obviously have this supercomputer in our hands all day long, so we think a little bit less than we have to, and
Right.
I feel like our attention span has gotten to the point where, I mean, you look at this podcast, you look at like what's going on with this. We got 5 downloads on the last episode that came out on Monday. And I sit there and I go, it's funny. There's only 5 downloads. And then you go over to YouTube and you go to TikTok and you look at the clips, which are a minute long versus the 30-minute version of this that 5 people have listened to. But over 400, over 500, over 1,000, sometimes 5,000 people have watched the clip. So they have the attention span to hang in there for 1 minute, but they don't have the attention span to hang in there for 30. And so we've learned that because all we do is we sit here and that's the way we like our content. That's the way we like to view things. Like, we don't have enough time to pay attention to something. I mean, how many people actually sit down and watch, like a movie? You go to the movie nowadays and you're like, you got your phone in the pocket and you're sitting in the movie theater and you're like, how many times do you pull that out? Because you can't stay focused on that. I mean, there's things in this life that now we watch TV and we're on our phone at the same time. We're dividing our attention and we just don't understand it. It just doesn't make sense. We need to focus on a lot more.
And I think some of her problems, and she understands where I'm coming from. I told her she needs to read a book. She needs to put her phone down and read a book, get off social media, put yourself in a position where you're not getting dopamine hits every 25 seconds.
Right.
Use your imaginations. What we're learning is we're learning a lot of things about our bodies, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The research is really, really strong in the sense that if you want to live longer, you want to feel better, you want to de-stress, work out at least 30 minutes a day.
Yep.
Why? Listen, this is the way our body works. It floods our body with all these really good hormones, right?
Yeah.
If you want to be in a creative place and be peaceful, read a book.
Right.
Why? If you read a novel, you put yourself in that mindset, right? Where you're using imagination, using all the things that scrolling on YouTube don't make you do. You don't have to imagine anything. Everything's there for you.
Yep. Yeah, it's crazy too, because just as you're talking about that, I think about like going out and getting exercise and things like that. It's like, I have a hard time. So, it's winter here, right? It's winter in Idaho. There's this inversion now. The roads are slick. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on. And it's like, I don't want to fall. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And so I'll go in my garage and I'll get on my treadmill and I'll walk for 30 minutes or I'll walk for, 10, 15 minutes or whatever. And it's hard. It's hard to do that and stay focused because you're staring at a wall. So you have to find some way to get you motivated. You got to listen to music. You got to have a TV show on. You got to do something, because if I go on a walk outside, I can go out and I can walk, no problem, not looking at anything, just go out and do it because there's things to observe around me. But when I'm sitting there staring at a wall, it just makes it seem like that 10, 15, 30 minutes is like 4 hours, and it's insane. But you go outside and you do it and you forget.
You do. And again, outside is such a good therapy. Music is such good therapy. We're learning so much because we've pulled ourselves away from our natural being, that we're learning that, hey, that walk outside, Maybe
Yep.
you're freezing your butt off, but that walk outside, really, really important. The music that you listen to calms you, puts you in a different state. Again, a lot of the things we're learning are telling us the technology age that we're living in is actually killing us.
Right.
Okay. So we need to pull back. Listen, there's nothing wrong with having a supercomputer in your hands.
Hmm.
Man, you talk about making things easy, but that's not our universe,
Right.
right? And as much as I love people on social media, they're not my universe either.
Hmm.
Okay. The universe is the people that I interact with on a regular basis. I'm so thrilled that we can do a podcast and sit and talk to people around the world. Absolutely. But this is not our complete universe.
Yep.
This is a mechanism. This is a broadcast. This is really cool, though.
Yeah. Even Nikki says, change the music, make a playlist, not the same songs, finds it
So
helps
true.
as well. And
So true.
that's the thing is I feel like as there's two sides of this, right? I feel like it's given me the convenience to do multiple things at one time by having that and using it as a tool.
Right.
So it does help because you're able to continue to do, like I'm sitting here, I've got 4 screens in front of me right now. I've got my phone, I've got my computer, I've got my camera, I've got another monitor over here. And like these things are giving me the ability to do multiple things at one time. And I can stream on 4 different places. I'm doing all this stuff. And it is convenient because it makes it so that you can reach more people. The thing is, though, is that now if you allow that, you have all that stuff. What did you do before? How did people get anything accomplished before? And so you can overuse it to a point, right?
Yes. Well, because it's easy and you end up indulging. And it's like I said, as she calls it in her case, my friend calls it doom scrolling.
Hmm.
She sits there and she gets her information off of TikTok or Instagram or whatever. And I'll look at her and I'll say, why do you think that's accurate?
Right.
And she said, well, it's that. I said, no, just because it's there doesn't mean it's the truth.
Hmm.
I said, so why are you putting all that into your system? Why are you being triggered like that? Why are you letting that happen to you?
Yeah.
One of the things my son learned, he's overseas in Europe now. One of the things he learned is this place, United States, is full of propaganda.
Hmm.
He didn't realize how bad it was until he got over there and he went, these people actually report the news.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, we're over here reporting opinions and everybody's got an angle. And I said, so you don't seem to get the truth. Even when people are trying to tell you something positive for your body, it's slanted in the way they got a product to sell.
Yeah.
So you're not really looking at it. And I explained to her, you know what peer-reviewed material is, right?
Hmm.
Your research should be peer-reviewed. If
Right.
it's not peer-reviewed, why in the world are you reading it and
Yeah.
listening to it?
And it's funny. And I don't think they can find, like the media can't find peer reviewers that fast, right? To peer review what they're
No,
doing.
no.
But they just say what they want. And it's hilarious to me because I thought, after this all kind of happened, like the election, obviously there were tons of propaganda before, tons of propaganda after. And now they're returning to where they were before. Like they shut up for a little bit because they were wrong and they were proven wrong. And then all of a sudden it's coming back. We had a conversation my friend Jay and I did yesterday, and they're talking about uneducated people voting. They're like, so many uneducated people voted for Trump. And they're using that as a negative term that you're uneducated, right? So define uneducated. Well, uneducated means that you don't have a college degree. How many people do you know that have a college degree? I mean, obviously we have them, but it's few and far between. I don't hang out with, I have probably 5 best friends or whatever. I hang out with them and they don't all have college degrees. Like I may be the only one who has a college degree, but they're telling you that you're uneducated because you don't have one. That's complete bullshit. And how do you define that, right?
I think that a lot of the companies that are created by great men over the last 50 years, how many of them have college degrees?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying they didn't go to college. I'm just saying how many people finished. And why is that the Mendoza line? Because you would know that term from baseball. Why is that the Mendoza line for intelligence?
Yeah.
The concept in here of the idea that there's uneducated people. My friend said this really well about TikTok and being banned. She said it real well. She said, why in the world do I not just get to check a box that says, I understand the Chinese may be getting my information. I don't care.
Right.
I want freedom of choice.
Yep.
Don't make it for me.
Right.
The whole point. Right. And she's very left of center. But her point of left of center is, I want freedom. Why are we talking about, freedom to choose when you're not giving me the freedom to choose?
Right.
When you're telling me how this is going to be? What if I want to check a box that says, I don't give a crap whether the Chinese have all my financial information?
Mm-hmm.
Why can she not choose that?
Yeah, and it's funny too because I had a friend on here. There's a new app coming out that's called Lemonade that is part of what TikTok is doing. Like TikTok owns it or something like that. And that's, people are saying, well, this is where all that information is going to get transferred over to or whatever, blah, 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 blah. And one of my friends hopped on and goes, why would I give the Chinese government my information again to another app? And it's like, you've already given your information to whoever you're giving it to. It's not going to make a difference. You go over to this other app and you sign in under TikTok. It's the same thing. So like you're not giving your information twice, but if they want your information, they'll get it. They don't care. It doesn't matter what you do. You can try and protect yourself as much as you possibly can, but my father has LifeLock and my father doesn't have social media and he has been hacked. Someone has stolen his identity like 3 or 4 times. And, there's a lot of people who haven't even had it stolen once. So, I mean, it's going to happen no matter what.
Yeah, I remember this is years ago. I got a note from the Department of the Army that said, hey, incidentally, your information was on that laptop. And this was many years ago, on a laptop that was inadvertently put in the wrong place. And I was like, okay, what do you want me to do about that? Thank you for the information. What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
And their answer was, well, we just wanted to let you know. Oh, well, cool. Thanks. Obviously, I pay attention to every transaction that goes on in my accounts.
Yep.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, there's not
Vigilance,
a whole lot you can
right?
do about it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, just a sense of vigilance. But it goes back to the thing that she's really saying is conceptualizing the same thing is life expands and contracts based upon your courage. If I want to be on TikTok and and I have the quote unquote courage to be on TikTok, then that's the way I'm going to do it.
Yep.
This is supposed to be about freedom. Why are we talking freedom in terms of a nanny state?
Yeah.
Where the state takes care of us. Oh, but you don't know any better. You're stupid.
Yep.
Okay. Let me beat you right. I'm obviously not educated. Now, I am very educated.
Yeah.
So what does that mean if I happen to vote for the wrong person? What does that mean?
Yep. You're
I'm just
uneducated.
asking.
You're uneducated, and that's the reason why. Like, they're just trying to find justification of why you did what you did. That's all there is to it. And what's funny is the person that I was talking to about this, like, they were talking about The View. Like, that's one of the things that drives me insane about all this stuff is The View is insane. And they're sitting there talking about uneducated people. And one of the people, like, I Googled Whoopi Goldberg. Did she go to college? She did go to college. She didn't graduate, and she doesn't have a high school diploma. So is she considering herself uneducated when she's calling all these people uneducated?
Yeah, I mean, this is uneducated because they don't agree with you.
Yep, exactly.
If you just understood that, if you just knew better, you wouldn't be so, stuck in your ways. Listen, nobody wants to admit. Everybody needs to get real.
Yeah.
The economy did not do better over the last 4 years. That's really what we care about.
Yep.
Okay. Did it do better? No. So what do you do about that? Let's go, is Trump going to make it better? I hope so.
Yeah.
Why? Because I live here.
Yep.
Right? I mean, I don't
it's
know
funny. The
why
illusion is hilarious of these people this illusion of that, like, Biden created more jobs than any other president. Yeah, okay, so let's take out the people who couldn't go to work because of COVID, and let's call that data that he created those jobs. He didn't create those jobs. Those jobs were already there. People went back. It's like we don't differentiate between the flu and COVID. Okay, so there was a lot more COVID. It's like, get the facts, know the information, and quit letting them pull the wool over your eyes. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, and we have good data. We know what's going on in the world. The reality is listen, the last couple administrations have not treated us the best.
Yep.
Okay. Middle class has been suffering for a while now. This isn't new. This is 50 odd years.
Yep.
Okay. That's a lot of different administrations. The point is that as a country, we want to make a change.
Yep.
Is this Trump going to be the change? I don't know. We may need to make another one. Don't know.
Yep.
I know one thing. I know we're not getting richer.
Yep. He's got the chance to prove to us that that's what the problem was. So that's all I can do is let it happen.
That's it.
Yep. Well, Robert, thanks for hanging out. It has been another great little talk. Go out there today and find that courage. Thank you to Nikki and Michelle and Anna for supporting the show, subscribing on TikTok. You can do that. Just hit the subscribe button. You can go over to patreon.com/shaping success. And there's links all over the place. You can find it wherever you can find it. Listen to the podcast. If you can go over to Apple Podcast, if you listen, drop a review. Haven't had one in a while, and they actually help quite a bit. So check me and Robert out every Wednesday, 5 o'clock Mountain Time, 7 Eastern. And we'll see you next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, Kathleen. Y'all have a wonderful week. Take care.
All right.